I think as a teacher in philosophy, one of the really important things for me to not just bring across the passion and so forth, but is to really get students to make a shift in the way they think about the world. Now, I'm thinking both in terms of developing skills and critical thinking to do with both the discipline sort of contents of philosophy, but also about the world itself, about how they understand the world, the types of assumptions that sort of underpin their ideas about the world. And I think that one of the important things that I'm aiming to do is to really spark students to think about that, and best of all, to actually make a shift, which I have to say they find very uncomfortable a lot of the time. A lot of my teaching is I have to sort of warn students that they're going to be made quite upset on occasion. They're going to come away with the potential of having shaken their core ideas about how the world is and issues such as that. And that's actually a really positive thing, because I think in a way that philosophy offers students the chance to rethink how they understand their world, and perhaps to take those rethought assumptions and to actually start to live in the world in a different way to how they were. I'd agree that there's no right or wrong answers as such in a lot of ways within this particular domain, but there are more or less convincing answers. And one of my important sort of aims is to get students to recognise what makes a convincing argument within any domain of knowledge or truth that we take as being important, both these days and, of course, in previous points in history. This also does mean that I have a very strong emphasis on formative assessment. I think it's very important to, particularly if I'm trying to get students to shift in thinking they need actually time to practice this, and it's very demanding to learn how to do this. So I tend to have a lot of assessment tasks and therefore quite a lot of marking. But my focus would be on assessment tasks that give them a chance to demonstrate particular skills in running an argument or being part of a debate around these core assumptions that we use to understand our world, and to find ways to give them feedback on how well they're doing that work of being a thinker in the world. So it can be difficult to get students into philosophy. A lot will come and try it just out of interest because it's something they've always heard about and think, well, I wonder what that would be like. A lot of them also seem to think that it's a bit like Seinfeld philosophy of talking about nothing for endless amounts of time, preferably with small shots of something lined up in advance. For most students, once they've done their first course and they start to realise the kinds of thinking skills that I'm actually starting to help them to develop, they start to see the value of philosophy on their own base, which means I tend to get students who come in to sort of taste the waters and then end up changing their major to actually make philosophy the key part of their degree, or recognising the importance of doing a sort of a sequence of philosophy courses alongside whatever the major would actually be. And I think one of the very interesting things for me has been to do some research on student attitudes towards study in philosophy. And there was an overwhelming recognition that work in philosophy, study in philosophy, even at undergraduate level, actually does develop thinking skills. Now the students are recognising this. The students are now actually starting to demand philosophy as part of their actual degree structures. And this has been a fantastic thing because, of course, I get a string of very motivated students who come in to actually be part of this kind of experience, I suppose. But also I start to get students who take philosophy a lot more seriously and start to think about it in terms of how it might sort of value add, I guess, to their own areas. One of the things that's been on the back burner for a little bit has been the aim to do a Herds of Fellowship. I think they're a very interesting opportunity to really focus down further upon teaching practices. I would also like to be doing some more research with regards to the role of philosophy within, or to do with issues such as graduate attributes. I think philosophy has a huge amount to offer, which is not yet recognised within a lot of university structures. So, desirably, Herds of Fellowship or sort of apply for this either this year, next year or the one after. But to certainly keep on researching in terms of student attitudes towards philosophy's role within their development as university critical thinkers, because I think of all the things a university education is about, it actually is about developing critical thinking skills to develop thinking citizens. And this is something that philosophy does by its requirement of very rigorous, very considered thinking about all of our assumptions about our world.